Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Shmuel with you with this week's 10-minute Torah. This week we're going to be looking at Parashat Jethro. So I want to thank the people that came out for our Tu B'Shvat Seder. It was a lot of fun. We had some good times, and there it is. So Tu B'Shvat, as some of you might know, it's the 15th. That's what the Hebrew letters Tu mean. It's been vocalized. The Tet is 9, the Vav is 6. 9 and 6 is 15. Why don't we use 10, which is Yud, and 5, Hey? Well, then you'd be spelling the name of God, and by using the name of God, Yah, as a number, you're taking God's name in vain. And that is the third commandment, which we learn in this week's portion. So it's kind of interesting. So in order to avoid that, even though everybody knows, well, it's a number, the fact that there's a connection, they want to use the other letters, so as to not, disrespect Hashem. So Tu B'Shvat is really just a day. That's how it started out. In fact, it wasn't even a day. It was just one of those interpretations as to the commandment, when you plant a tree, you let it go fallow for the first 3 years, this is called Orla. Then in the fourth year, your produce goes as an offering to the Kohanim and the Levites. And after that, then it's 90% yours, and there's just a tithe, 10% tax to the temple. Tithe actually is a Greek word that means tenth, so that's the tax. Back in the Middle Ages, the Kabbalists thought that it was such a beautiful thing, a way to honor the earth, that they turned it into kind of a celebration of plants and flora and those species, those plant species that feed us, and they created a Seder very much like our Passover Seder. So if you remember last week, or some of you that didn't, we talked about the idea of Jewish pride. I had read an article from someone who said, we Jews don't take enough pride in who and what we are in our religion. In a way, Tu B'Shvat is one way to have pride in who we are. I mean, think about it. If you look at the Torah, all right, what are the mandated holidays and festivals? Well, of course, last week in the portion of Beshalach, Moses was leading, it was Bo, I'm sorry. Moses was leading everybody, all the Israelites, out of Egypt. And he's telling them this is going to be our calendar going forward. And this is going to be the start of the year. The first month of the year is the year we leave Egypt, which is the month of Aviv, as it's called in the Torah, which means spring. But in the modern scheme of naming the months, we call it the month of Nisan. Now, it also discusses Rosh Hashanah, which is in the 7th month. This is something we're going to hear about later on. And Rosh Hashanah is actually in the 7th month. It's the spiritual new year. We're introduced to Yom Kippur. 10 days later, we have the Day of Atonement, Shabbat Shabbaton, where we afflict ourselves by fasting. We then have Sukkot, which is a 7-day, 8-day in the diaspora festival. That's basically the Jewish Thanksgiving. We've also been introduced again to the idea of Passover, which starts on the 15th of the month of Nisan. As Judaism developed, especially outside of Israel, when we lost our temple, holidays were added. Purim and Hanukkah were added pretty much after the destruction of the temple. Tu B'Shvat, honoring the plants. Tu B'Av, the 15th of the month of Av, in the midst of mourning because we don't have a temple. And you're familiar with Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the holiday of Av, which is a very severe day. It's the only other time in the year where we do a full fast. There are other fasts where it's basically a minor fast, sun up to sundown. You're basically missing, you get up early enough to eat breakfast when the sun comes up, you're missing lunch, and that's basically it. So this is a way to take pride in Judaism by observing Tu B'Shvat, having that Seder. By Tu B'Av, all you men buy your woman flowers. It's kind of like the Jewish Valentine's Day, or maybe Valentine's Day is the Christian Tu B'Av, right? It's a day for that. So this is one way we take pride in being Jewish, by honoring our heritage and what's important to us. So okay, so I've waxed on enough about that. Let's talk about Jethro. So this is where we get the Ten Commandments. But first, we get another very important concept, the concept that's used by modern businesses, and it's basically delegation. So Moses is out there adjudicating. He's the prophet. He's got the direct connection to Hashem. So when people they want to settle disputes, there's an issue, they come to Moses. Well, Jethro shows up. He goes, man, I heard what happened. That's awesome. You guys, you escaped Egypt. God came through. And basically, this is Jethro giving up his idolatry. Because remember, he was a Midianite chieftain. He was an important guy. He sees Moses doing this. And, I like to make a joke about this. Moses, what are you doing? And Moses says, well, I'm the prophet here. I'm adjudicating. He goes, with all these people, you're going to be here for 40 years. And it was Jethro. And see, this is remarkable about Judaism. We give credit where credit is due. And when there's an issue, we acknowledge it. We're not perfect. We're humans. We're flawed by design. And it's Jethro, an outsider who becomes an insider, who brings it to Moses and says, delegate. All right, yeah, you got to adjudicate the important things, but the little stuff like whose boundary, whatever, give it to other elders that are schooled and teach them. And this way, people, the elders, are becoming part of the process, and they're learning, and they get to impart knowledge. So it's a dissemination of knowledge from God to Moses, to the elders, to the people. It's a beautiful concept. Think about it. And it's a way to get everybody involved. Now, there are some sages that, there's always a party pooper in the bunch, folks. There's always some sage that says, well, Moses had the connection by delegating. He's basically abrogating his responsibility. I personally don't agree with that. I think it's beautiful what he did. He got more people involved. A lot of us rabbis today, when we lead services, we call on people to do readings. We let people read. We have people read from the Torah when they can, Haftarot, lessons from the prophets, lead part of the service, get people involved, have them feel pride. And when the congregation is seeing this, they feel pride. It's a group, we got a minyan, right? What's a minyan? It's a group consciousness, right? Okay, so let's talk about the Ten Commandments. Very important. One of the key things about the Ten Commandments is how it appears in the Torah. And there was a group of anonymous sages that existed, maybe 1,500, 1,800 years ago, called the Masoretes. And those are the guys that put all the vowels, the Nikud marks, all the cantillations, divided the verses and everything. I think the Parshas came later. It was more of a modern invention type of thing. And this way, everybody's basically reading the same thing. So when we get to the Ten Commandments, there's a number of verses, but there's two ways to sing it for the cantillations. One way is, they say, when you're just kind of practicing on your own. Now, for me, I've really taken the idea of reading directly from the Torah to the nth extreme. I started out by basically using, for lack of a better term, a cheat sheet. So I'd have the Chumash or something open here, and I'm going to the Torah, I'm looking back and forth, and that got kind of laborious, going back and forth. So I started studying a little bit more, so I could know what I'm reading. I could read directly from the Torah. Then our Sofer, Rabbi Menachem Bialo, came and said, after I was bar mitzvahed, my father wanted me Bal Kriya. So I would study like 5 hours a week, so I could just read it directly from the Torah with the cantillations. So now I'm kind of inspired, and that's kind of what I'm working on. I would love to be able to read the Torah with all its correct vowels and its cantillations. All right, so make a long story short. The other way of reading the Ten Commandments is how we read it when we're actually doing the reading. And the way the Ten Commandments are divided out when we're doing the reading, a different cantillation, there are 10 verses, one for each commandment. The commandments basically, I am God. I'm the one, I am the being that took you out of Egypt. 2, don't have any gods before me. 3, don't use my name in vain. Now people say, damn. It's an expression. Build a fence around the Torah. Don't use it if you don't have to. If you do, it's not a big deal. But we want to show respect. 4 is honor the Shabbat. Remember the Shabbat in Deuteronomy. Keep it holy. You have a day of rest. Revolutionary concept back then. Everybody just worked. Nobody had a day off. Next, honor father and mother. Then we have don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, which includes kidnapping, by the way. Don't bear false witness against anybody, your fellow. And finally, don't covet. Don't want something badly enough that you're willing to take it. That's the difference. I mean, it's great to keep up with the Joneses, or in our case, keep up with the Steins, but you work for it. I want that porch, so I'm going to work really hard so I can buy one. Not, I want that porch, I'm going to take it. That's the difference. All right, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, as always, for listening, and look forward to seeing you in synagogue and during Torah study.